If we've got all the relevant people, we will move on to the next debate.
20 minutes, I should keep to with interventions.
Order. I will now call Luke Charters to move the motion, and then I will call the Minister to respond. Can I remind other members present that they may only make a speech with prior permission from the member in charge and the Minister. They can, of course, intervene if either are prepared to take their intervention. There will not be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention for these shorter debates. I call Luke Charters to move the motion.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and thank you for your time this morning. I've always said this: I am a dad first and an MP second. My son Robin is 3, he's kind and he's happiest when he's outside playing, and I'm proud of him every single day. My youngest, Louis, is 7 months old and he's already curious about the world, watching and taking everything in. So when this job takes me away from them, it hurts. And one thing is very clear: when I'm at home, I need to be a properly present dad. So I want to be honest with the House. There were weeks when my phone told me I was spending over 6 hours a day on it. Even on weekends, when family time should be protected, it was 4 or 5 days. When kids are young, you never get that time back, and every hour counts. Smartphones, though, are a feat of human engineering. They've been deliberately designed to take our attention quietly and relentlessly. So I had to make a deliberate change for my 2 boys, cutting my screen time down, choosing to be on the floor, building Brio, making even a Duplo Parliament, rather than being half present and half scrolling. Because present fatherhood starts with all of us putting the phone down. I will.
So can I commend the Honourable Gentleman for bringing this forward? And I've absolutely no doubt in my mind from the persona that gives us in the chamber, he's a good dad. And he's very responsive to his children. I understand that. What is undoubted that when used correctly, digital technology has positive effects. The fact is that use near bedtime or overuse is leading teachers in classes to highlight pupils having, and I quote the teacher saying, having wrecked or tired students coming to school, with excessive use linked to lower academic performance. So does the Honourable Gentleman not agree that we must seek to help parents and carers find a balance in the use of screen time? As said in the press today, that very request. Does the Honourable Gentleman agree? Thank you.
Well, I thank the Honourable Gentleman for giving that intervention. And I think parents do need a bit of support when it comes to offering guidance and advice around what's excessive, particularly when it comes to unsupervised screen time.
Would the Honourable Member give way on that point? I thank the Honourable Member for giving way on what he's giving a brilliant speech, and I want to pay tribute to him, my honourable friend and actual friend, who is a brilliant advocate for our generation of parents, and I know is also a wonderful dad. Does the Honourable Member agree with me that parents today are in desperate need of this guidance? Because I met Jonathan Haidt recently, who is the author of An Anxious Generation, and I asked him straight out, what do we do about screens? And he said to me, narrative, long-form narrative content where you're watching it with your children is fine, but single use, letting your child be on the screen singly as an activity where they're using short-form content is a problem. But we need a public health campaign, a 5-a-day public health campaign from the government, and I hope the Minister will address that in her wind-ups.
Content is better in some context, not here. Luke Charters.
Well, thank you, Sir Jeremy. To put it very briefly, I think my honourable friend is a fantastic mum herself, an advocate for the great parents of Britain. And I think that parents do need some advice around unsupervised screen time, particularly on smartphones, which is totally different from sitting down at a laptop doing their homework. And I'll touch on some adaptive technologies later. Look, Sir Jeremy, every time a child looks up and finds a parent looking down at a phone, a lesson is quietly taught about what deserves their attention. And that truth was reinforced when I spoke to Zach George, known to many as Steele from Gladiators, and now an ambassador for smartphone-free childhood. Zach's message to young people is stark and powerful. Do not let your phone steal your power. And he's dedicated his life to inspiring kids and taught with thousands of school children in over 400 school visits. Through his brand, Zactive, he's sending a clear message to children that if you want to grow up happy and healthy, stop scrolling and keep it IRL.
Would the honourable gentleman briefly give way on that?
I shall.
Thank you. I'd like to draw my honourable friend's attention to Born in Bradford, which is an internationally recognised research cohort study, and they've just launched in real life trial with children in Bradford aged 12 to 15 to test if reducing their social media use will reduce anxiety, improve sleep and improve their relationship with their parents. So does my honourable friend agree with me that this sort of research and evidence is going to be essential to be able to bring forward and understand the harmful impacts of social media on our young people?
Well, I thank very much my honourable friend for citing that, and I think we can draw real lessons from what's happening in Australia. In fact, Sir Jeremy, you may not be aware, but some of the bookshops in Australia are seeing a resurgence from new young readers putting their phones down in lieu for future novels. So, Jeremy, I've also recently watched content from Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, who's consistently warned about the dangers of excessive screen time. And in preparation for this speech, I've also gathered insights from the Youth Sports Trust and the Book Trust. And each of these voices highlight slightly similar concerns. But staying with voices from the education sector, I also spoke with teacher Lee Parkinson, a.k.a. Mr. P. And in fact, my wife, a primary school teacher herself, can often be seen scrolling through Instagram looking at his content. And he made a really important point I'd love all honourable members to take away. Not all screen time is created equal. Used well and supervised, technology can support learning. For a child with dyslexia, speech-to-text software can remove barriers and build confidence. But unsupervised access to personal smartphone and tablets is something entirely different.
On my friend, what way?
I'll give way there first.
Thank you. Thank you. On that point, as someone who is dyslexic and has ADHD, I used my phone quite a lot at school. I was also bullied quite badly, and my phone was a release. But the Conservatives, unfortunately, did a 100% cut to youth services in Somerset, which saved my life. Will you agree with me that the government should invest more in youth services in rural communities to help young people thrive?
Well, thank him for sharing his personal experience with us today, and I completely agree that young people, they need support for that IRL life, be that through youth services or physical activity as well. And I'll give way to my honourable friend here.
I thank my honourable friend not just for securing this debate, but speaking quite powerfully as a parent about why it's so important. I think we've got to be honest, and guidance is great, but it can often miss the mark when it comes to actually answering the questions parents out there are asking. It's why I'm holding a forum later in February to speak to local parents about exactly what they're looking for from this guidance. And so does he agree with me that it's so important that when we deliver it, not only is it evidence-based, but it's grounded in the real questions and experiences of parents right across Britain today?
Well, I thank him for all the work he's doing through the Labour Men and Boys group. And I think what's really refreshing about this government, and particularly the Secretary of State for DSIT, my right honourable friend, she is really carefully considering this with a lot of deep thought. And I think the consultation is not going to be looking just for one silver bullet. It is going to be looking at a variety of options. So, Jeremy, children are spending hours a day on platforms designed to maximise engagement, delivering constant dopamine hits through short-form video content and infinite scroll loops. And the evidence increasingly shows this is affecting attention, behaviour in schools, sleep and emotional regulation. I shall.
I'm very grateful. Very briefly on that point, I'm at the other end of my parenting journey. My little girl is 24 today, but she's a paediatric nurse, and one of the things she's drawn my attention to is the Cocomelon channel on YouTube, which is a sensory overload. And does my honourable friend agree with me that it's not just about the length of time, it is about the content and sometimes the garish audio and colour that comes with that content?
Well, I may wish my honourable friend's daughter a happy birthday and thank her for work she's doing as a paediatric nurse. And I think Cocomelon, Sir Jeremy, has been described as visual fentanyl to young children. And actually what is much more appropriate, at a particularly younger age, is more hand-drawn types of content, like, if I may say so, Peppa Pig. So perhaps we all ought to go for a bit more Pepper and a bit less JJ. So don't just take my word from it, because research published by the DfE showed that nearly 98% of children under the age of 2 engage with screens every day. A UCL study in 2026 found that toddlers now average around 2 hours of screen time daily, far more than my little lad is allowed. An analysis from the Centre for Social Justice very sadly estimates that nearly 800,000 under 5s are now using social media. Ofcom data from 2024 reveals that a third of 5 to 7-year-olds are using social media without any supervision. And frankly, as a parent, that scares the living daylights out of me. Data like this is stark, but it's just part of the story. So somewhat ironically, Sir Jeremy, I turned to social media to ask my constituents about their own experiences with their young children. And more than the quantity of screen time children have, parents responded that they're even more worried about the type of content that children are exposed to. One teacher shared with me feedback from the NASUWT's report, Better Deal on Behaviour, with one Year 1 teacher describing how children were actually beginning to mimic inappropriate behaviour they'd seen online, despite being far too young to understand it. Another raised the idea of digital diets, and they made the point that screen time can range from something as harmless as using Google Maps, or something like to find the local library, to accessing inappropriate material. So to go back to the words of Mr. P, not all screen time is created equal. On this point, it feels timely to mention that I'm pleased the government has launched a new campaign this week, You Won't Know Until You Ask, to address harmful content, that follows findings from YouGov that half of British parents admit to never speaking to their children about toxic content. Encouraging parents to sit down with their children and talk about online harms helps break down barriers. It's a healthy step in the right direction.
Would the Honourable Member give way on that point?
Yeah.
Thank the Honourable Member for giving way on that point. He's giving a brilliant speech. Does the Honourable Member share my concern that relying solely on parental intervention for this huge swathe of technological advances is not enough, because we don't want children to start hiding things from their parents? We want to make sure that they're not exposed to it in the first place.
Well, thank you for the intervention. And I think, particularly when it comes to things like YouTube Shorts, members of this House would never want to see a ban on YouTube. But I think when it comes to the user experience on those platforms, there should be things like fire breaks or rest breaks akin to when you drive, to try to give children that pause so they don't end up in that infinite scroll loop. I think we should view screen time actually as a public health issue, not just a parenting dilemma. So health visitors, they meet parents at a very early stage in a child's life, and frankly I think they should be able to talk explicitly about screen time to parents from the very start, because early guidance at that point is critical as habits form early. As children grow older, they absorb the behaviours they see all around them, and if adults are constantly on their phones, children will almost absorb this by osmosis. The more parents are aware of this from the start, I think the better the outcomes can be. I shall.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. He's giving a brilliant speech, and I'm so pleased that he opened his remarks, and just now again, with looking at the role of parents and parents' use of mobile phones. I've recently met with paediatricians, GPs and head teachers who all say that they're observing in parents bad use of the phones themselves, which then impacts. Does he agree that that has a really detrimental consequence on the children when parents are on screens too much?
Well, I thank her for making that eloquent point, and I would say actually we should learn the lessons from Australia. And back in 2015, they got an e-safety commissioner, and their work when it comes to screen time was all about linking parents and children together as part of that collective dialogue. And I really think that we've got to keep young people safe by looking at age-appropriate digital spaces. What I would say, Sir Jeremy, so often the debate is focused on banning social media. We never quite talk about banning 16-year-olds from driving. Just 1 second, if I may. Absolutely. We never talk about banning young people from driving. We talk about age-appropriate limits to start driving at the age 17. Yes, I will.
I thank my honourable friend for this fantastic speech so far. As he talked about banning social media, I completely agree with him. But does he agree with me that we're seeing a correlation between excessive screen time and poor mental health, and these social media companies need to be more accountable for what they are allowing the next generation seeing, because there are some horrific things out there on social media?
Well, I thank him for making that excellent point, and I've spoken openly in this House about my own mental health struggles in the past. I think particularly when it comes to AI tools, we've got to make sure that they point people to the right and proper advice that's specific to the UK and the NHS and charities like Samaritans. So, Jeremy, I also believe that schools should be transparent with parents about the nature of screen use in the classroom. It's a welcome move, thanks to the government, that Ofsted will be checking schools' mobile phone policy on every inspection, with schools expected to be phone-free by default. Many schools already have thoughtful policies on tablet and laptop use too. And although technology can be absolutely a force for good, I think transparency is essential so that parents can have clarity about how screens are being used in school, so they can reinforce consistent habits at home. We can't have a situation where there are different approaches to screens at school versus those at home. When schools and families are aligned, I think children will get clearer boundaries and healthier habits online. The reality is we can't simply say less smartphone screen time, though, and leave it at that. We have to build positive, fulfilling alternatives too. Robin, my son, loves charging through what we call the swamp on his balance bike, usually straight through the muddiest bit, always at maximum speed. And as a parent, it's those magical moments with muddy knees, fresh air and real laughter that are more precious than an hour in front of the telly. We should all make better use of the things that are already out there set by schools. Events like sports days and World Book Days are perfect opportunities to get kids outdoor, active and reading together. And this all fits with Zach George's, aka Steele's, sentiment earlier that the less time scrolling, more time socialising, the better. In Australia, as I touched on earlier, Sir Jeremy, bookshops are welcoming more young readers, libraries are seeing renewed interest, and community sports clubs are attracting younger members in record numbers. These are the positive alternatives we must build. But of course, none of this is as simple or straightforward as it might seem. But it's a conversation I'm very glad we're having. And I like to think as myself as one of the most pro-tech MPs in this place, given my past career. But as the youngest parent in Parliament and as a proud dad, I believe we owe it to families to take more harmful types of screen time seriously, because after all, childhood only happens at once. And if we're honest with ourselves, too much of it is now unfolding behind a screen. At the heart of all of this is balance. Screen time is not all created equally. There's nothing wrong with children using BBC Bite Size on an iPad, learning a language on Duolingo, or even watching an episode of Bluey. As some members will know, it's an incredibly catchy theme tune. There's, of course, a balance to be struck. And if we're honest, this is an epidemic not just affecting children, but adults too. So to conclude, Sir Jeremy, I am deeply concerned about children becoming trapped in a system they did not design. Children did not build this digital world. It was created by forces far beyond their control. Yet, they are being drawn deliberately and persistently into addictive digital environments long before they have the tools to recognise or resist them. If we fail to act, it will be the children who live with the consequences, not those who designed the system. So, Jeremy, yesterday I met my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for DSIT, to talk about the government's forthcoming consultation. And I was really welcoming the point she made that many of the areas I raised today will be considered around how we prevent excessive, unsupervised screen time from harming young children. I know my right honourable friend cares deeply and is considering this issue carefully. So I thank honourable members today for joining this debate, and I hope the points that they raise will be thought about as inputs into the consultation too. Thank you.
Very grateful to the honourable gentleman. The question is that this House has considered the impact of screen time on young children. Minister.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's an honour to serve under your chairship. And thank you to the Honourable Member for York Outer for a really powerful and heartfelt speech. And there's so much that the Honourable Member set out that I really that resonated with me as a mum of a 2-year-old. Both the struggle to stay off your phone, and I really would not look at my screen time. So it was brave of my honourable friend to do so. That need to be present, the importance of messy outdoor play, and for children to have protected childhoods, but also actually how difficult it is to navigate this whole new world, and as a parent to find the best advice and the right thing to do for your child. So I think it's why the debates like this are so important, and your leadership, my honourable friend's leadership as a parent in this place is so critical. And as the honourable member said, we want to harness the benefits of technology for education, but we want to protect children from the harms. And I just want, before I got into the questions about screen time, I just wanted to reflect on what the honourable member for Yeovil and my honourable friend from York Outer said about the opportunities in childhood, the need for good youth services, the need for children to have opportunities to play, to be in sports activities, to perform. And it's why, as the Minister for School Standards, I'm so focused on the enrichment opportunities that sit around school, outdoor learning, music performance, the opportunity to be in sports teams. These are the things that really give joy to the school experience and to young people's childhood, of course.
I'm sure the Minister is aware that it's the National Year of Reading, and talking about these wider opportunities when we're trying to get our kids off their screens. Would she commend the work of the National Literacy Trust in trying to restore the joy of reading, and perhaps share with us what her favourite childhood book is? Mine was The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
Do you know what? My next sentence was going to be the National Year of Reading, because I've been travelling around the country visiting schools, and it's been absolutely wonderful to see how schools are really embracing the National Year of Reading. And I've been hearing about how schools are putting on pyjama parties for parents and children to read together. I've been at schools when parents have come in to read with children, and I think it's really bringing reading to life and the joy of it. And I hope we will see a similar experience in Australia of bookshops full of children embracing reading. And, well, I can only say at the moment my son is obsessed with the Mog series. So all we do is talk about Mog in my house. So I recognise the concerns that my honourable friend raises about the impact of screen time on young children. We know that early childhood is critical developmentally, and that screen time can displace healthy behaviours like physical activity, adequate sleep, which have a complex interaction with mental health and well-being, as we heard. Of course.
Way. I recently did a survey with local schools, and I think perhaps the children were more willing to put on a survey how much screen time they did when not supervised by their parents. But what I was kind of enthused about was the things that they said that they would do if they were not on social media, far more time outdoors and reading, as has already been mentioned. Would the Minister agree that we need to make sure we've got evidence, so we're not just doing what's simple, but what's right?
Yes. Absolutely, and I think that evidence is so important because, as we've just heard, it's a struggle. This isn't about judging parents. This is about giving them the best evidence and the tools they need to make these decisions to support children.
I thank the Minister, as always, for replying to me. What I'd like to say is that only 18% of dyslexic have access to assistive technology, and I know you're passionate about getting that changed. Are we on the right road to get more assistive technology into our education system for dyslexics?
Absolutely. So we're really committed to supporting assistive technology. We've introduced new lending libraries, as my honourable friend is aware, and we recently announced 200 million investing into teacher training. And one of the things that we want to have as part of that training is how we best use assistive technology in the classroom, as well as what we're doing around EdTech and growing EdTech around the classroom. And that shows that technology can be helpful when it's supporting learning, and it's really important to take a nuanced approach. We know that from recent government research that children with the highest screen use at age 2, around 5 hours daily, can say significantly fewer words than those with lower use. And my honourable friend referred to the research that said 98% of two-year-olds watch a screen daily. And as the honourable member for Darlington set out, it's really critical that parents have the right information to be able to support their children. And that's why in January we announced the first ever government guidance for parents on screen use for under 5s, aiming to provide practical, non-judgmental advice to help parents balance screen use with activities that support children's development, such as playing, speaking and reading. And parents want this guidance. We've heard as parents in this chamber that we want this guidance, and polling from Kindred shows that 40% of parents say that reducing screen time would help ensure their child is ready for reception, underlying the demand for practical, trusted guidance in the early years. I therefore recognise both the significance of this issue and the responsibility that comes with getting it right. For that reason, we've set up the Early Years Screen Time Advisory Group, a new expert panel chaired by Professor Russell Viner, former Chief Scientific Advisor to the Department for Education, as well as a leading paediatrician and expert in children's health, and Dame Rachel de Souza, the Children's Commissioner for England. The Early Years Screen Time Advisory Group will review the current evidence and existing advice on early years screen use to help inform the new guidance for parents. In fact, the group is actually having its second meeting as we speak, which sets out the urgency and seriousness with which this work is being taken forward. We want to hear directly from those with relevant knowledge and experience, and we launched a 2-week call for evidence on the 2nd of February to ensure that the guidance is firmly grounded in both evidence and expertise. And I'd really encourage the honourable members here to share their evidence. The honourable member for Shipley mentioned some work done in Bradford, and I encourage her to share that. Of course.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. She's giving a brilliant speech summing up this important debate. Can I ask the Honourable Lady if there will be any consideration in this work around the link between the new need for more speech and language therapy for early years and screen time preschool?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I think we want to look at the evidence, including any impact on speech and language. And we know we are seeing far greater need for speech and language support. It's why we're investing in new early years support around speech and language. But it's one of the areas I'm sure that the evidence will address. Engagement sessions with parents, children, early years practitioners and stakeholders are taking place across England, allowing them to share what works in real family life and what support they need from guidance. The guidance will be published in April and made available to parents through the Best Start in Life website, giving them the clarity and support they're asking for to navigate screen time with their youngest children. And then more broadly, the Honourable Member for Swindon North raised the issue of harmful content and protecting children from harmful content. The Online Safety Act requires providers to specifically consider, as part of their risk assessment, how algorithms could impact children's exposure to illegal content and content which is harmful to children on their service. Services that assess themselves as being easily accessed by children must put in place measures to prevent algorithms from pushing harmful content to children. And as we heard from my honourable friend, there is a wider consultation, national conversation that is being led to look at some of these broader issues. The Department of Education is committed to strengthening the evidence base on the impact of screen use and screen time on child development. Our set of longitudinal studies already gather data on children's screen and social media use and will interrogate their relationship in mental health and cognitive development. And we're funding a programme of research to better understand the impact of digital technologies on children. However, we're in strong agreement with the overwhelming message from today is that we can't wait to act in this space. So we have to look to protect and enhance our children's lives online. And it's right that we continue to look at further action that can be taken. And I really welcome the conversation today, the important debate. We will be setting out this guidance, but it's important that we do have these national conversations, that we do that without blaming parents, but making sure that they have the information they need, and that when they do want to get out and enjoy time with their children, that we are putting on the right activities and the right support to enable them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. The question, therefore, is that this House has considered the impact of screen time on young children. As many as that opinion say aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The sitting is now suspended until 2:30 this afternoon. Order. Order.